One of the last videos I did, I installed these recessed LED deck lights in the deck that I was building. And I'll show you these. This is how they come. The wires that are attached to these from end to end are about a little over 3 feet long. I think they're 38 inches. And the light spacing on the deck that I built was about 5.5 feet. So I had to cut these connectors off and splice in some landscape wire in order to connect all the lights together with the spacing that I had. So I just wanted to do a quick video and show you how I did that. This wire here is 22 gauge, and the landscape wire that I bought is actually 18 gauge. I went up a little bit on the gauge just because the run that I was going to do was pretty long run, so I figured it wouldn't hurt to upsize the wire a little bit. These are what I use to make the connections, solder and seal wire connectors, and the red ones are good for 22 to 18 gauge wire. So I got that because I knew I could splice in 18 gauge wire into this 22 gauge wire. And when I got this landscape wire, I realized that the jacket on this is pretty thick. You can see how thick that is. And so it's really a tight fit to get one of these connectors on. And so what I ended up having to do is take a razor and shave a little bit of this jacket back in order to make the connectors fit. So I'll show you how I did that. Also, these came with these little plastic sheaths, and I took these off. I think that's if you're like burying them in the ground or something like that. But I used a 1-inch wood bit to drill out the holes in the deck. You can see that on the video I did, the deck video. And so once you drill that 1-inch hole, these fit really nicely down in there and sit flush on top of the deck boards. All right, first thing I'm gonna do is cut one of these connectors off. Just about right in the middle there. Use a knife here to split the wire. Just careful that you don't cut into the copper. Just split it a little bit, and you can use your fingers to separate the rest of the way. Take your wire strippers, and you can select whatever gauge you're stripping here. I'm on the last one at the end here, and I'm going to strip about a 1/2 inch. End of this wire, do the same thing. Okay, next thing we want to do is figure out how much landscape wire we need. So if you're installing this in a deck like I did, you're just going to want to figure out the distance from light to light. So mine's 5.5 feet, so I need to make sure this wire here to the next light, and the next light, you know, also has a wire coming off of it. So just measure that wire off the second light along with this, and then whatever's in the middle the distance in the middle that I need to get to 5.5 feet, let's just say 6 feet, because I want to have a little bit of slack in there, then that's how much landscape wire I need. For my purposes, I need 45 inches of landscape wire. So, grab my tape measure here. Right there. Cut it. By the way, this is wire that I bought on Amazon. I'll link it in the description. Just cut the wire down the middle here. Strip about a 1/2 inch off. Always make sure that you're not bringing any copper with you in that jacket. If you are, you need to make sure you're using the right setting on your wire strippers. You want to make sure you're only cutting off the plastic outside jacket of that wire. I usually kind of go around it a couple times, and then I take the plier end of these strippers and just break it off. It's usually the safest way to do it. So I'm going to shave a little bit of this jacket off. Just want to be careful that you don't cut into the copper. Just take your time. Obviously, if you use different gauge wire or get different connectors, you won't have this problem. But if you use the same things I did, you're going to have to do this. Maybe there's 18 gauge landscape wire out there that doesn't have such a thick coating on it. That would be nice. Alright. Let's take one of our solder connectors, slide it down over this smaller wire here. You're going to twist these together. You just lay them on top of each other. Twist them. Like that, and then you just slide that connector over until you center that little block of solder on the copper. That. Right. Take our heat gun. I really like this heat gun. I'll link it in the description as well. It's made by Wagner, but it's got this little stand. Like that. Try and wedge it in there. Got 2 heat settings. I'm just doing the highest heat. Want to turn it, and I just stay in that one spot where the solder is until the solder is melted. It takes a minute or two. It has to get pretty hot, and then once it's melted, I'll go to these outer edges and finish shrinking it down. And not all the solder is going to melt, but you'll start to see it, the silver color of it kind of seep into the copper wires. Turns a shiny silver color when it starts to melt. Starting to melt a little bit there. There it goes. move out to the outside edges, and you'll see that whole connector just shrinks up around the wires. And then that red substance in there melts down and creates like a watertight seal. Super cool. There you have it. Once it cools off, you can pull on those wires and they're not disconnecting. So I'm just going to repeat that same process on that one, and then same with the other end of the landscape wire, which will go back to the wires that are attached to the light. And then I will have plenty of slack to space out my lights 5.5 feet apart on my deck. So I will put a link in the description to everything I used here, as well as the link to the video that I did that covers the deck and how I installed the lights in the deck. You can just take a moment to like this video, give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you don't like it. That's understandable. And if you could also subscribe to the channel, that would really help us out. See you in the next video.